Good Friday morning to you. Thanks for joining us here on KARE 11 News Now. I'm Alicia Lewis. Let's get to your headlines today. Developing this morning, one of the busiest airports in the world, London's Heathrow Airport, shut down until at least this afternoon after this massive fire you see here at a nearby power station. As you can imagine, the disruptions in the UK and around the world started almost immediately. And that includes flights from here, MSP Airport. They had one that came back to MSP just 3 hours into their flight. And we have team coverage this morning, including what you need to know if you're traveling today. But first, let's get the very latest from London.
London's Heathrow, normally one of the busiest airports in the world, but this morning, this is as close as you can get, and we are already seeing travel disruption worldwide with U.S. passengers from coast to coast facing flight cancellations. Now, local authorities are saying a fire broke out at a power station near the airport early this morning. The cause still under investigation, but it knocked out power to the airport's 4 terminals. Authorities here are saying Heathrow is going to be shut until at least midnight local time. That's 8 p.m. Eastern. Some 1,300 flights were scheduled to take off or land here today. Those are obviously going to be directly impacted, but we are going to see a lot of knock-on effects with those aircraft out of position for their next flights. The advice from travel experts is to check directly with your airline if you think that your travel plans may be impacted. The last time Heathrow was closed like this was 2010 as a result of a volcano that erupted in Iceland, sending ash up into the air. That paralyzed global air traffic for a week, and people here hoping it'll be much quicker this time. Raf Sanchez, NBC News, London.
Well, you can see behind me, MSP is already in the middle of a 4-day stretch of very busy travel from spring breakers. So even a couple of canceled or delayed flights internationally are going to cause a headache. MSP has already seen some passengers have to come back after their flight to London was diverted. Take a look at this image. I found this on FlightAware. It shows the loop-de-loop. This Delta flight made last night after the pilot received word about the fire and the power outage at London Heathrow Airport. CNN spoke to passenger Kim Mikkel-Skrebreck, who was 3 hours into that flight when he heard over the loudspeaker that his plane was coming back to MSP.
I was traveling to Oslo, connecting through Heathrow to visit my dad who has cancer, to spend time with him, and now I will have to rebook my flights and find other accommodations for visiting my family.
Heathrow is a major travel hub linking the U.S. to other parts of Europe. We found flights from San Francisco that were also diverted or turned around, as well as one from New York. Britain's top transportation official posting on X telling people not to go to the airport and to call their airline about rebooking and refunds. 2 international flights out of MSP have been either canceled or delayed this morning. We're going to continue to keep an eye on those numbers as we expect they could grow throughout the day. Back to you.
Audrey, thank you. This morning, former State Senator Justin Eichhorn is waking up in the Sherburne County Jail as he's facing federal charges for allegedly trying to solicit a minor for prostitution. He just faced a federal judge for the first time on those charges. The judge ruling Eichhorn will stay in jail until a spot opens up at a halfway house. Eichhorn resigned from the state legislature yesterday, shortly before the lawmakers were set to take an unprecedented vote to expel him. His seat will be filled by a special election, which the governor has to officially call for. That election is expected to happen late April or early May. Well, look from the White House this morning, where President Trump has made good on his campaign promise to kill the federal Department of Education, at least partially. The president signed an executive order directing the agency to be shut down, but it would take an act of Congress to officially eliminate it. At protests across the country, educators warned poor and disabled students will suffer, while the White House promises core services will remain. NBC's Alice Barr is in Washington with the very latest.
Hi there. President Trump has long signaled this move to axe the Education Department was coming, though it can't be totally shuttered without Congress. The administration has already moved to slash half the staff in a preview of what's to come. President Trump making it official, signing an executive order
to begin eliminating the Federal Department of Education once and for all.
The move aims to fulfill a campaign promise and a long-held conservative wish to transfer full education oversight to the states, where curriculum decisions are already made and most school funding happens. Protesters from Denver to Missouri, including teachers' union leaders, worry what will be lost at the federal level.
What it does fund are free and reduced lunches and special ed programs. They're hurting kids.
Abolishing the education department altogether would take an act of Congress. Democrats are opposed, and the White House and Education Secretary say core services like managing student loans and Pell Grants and supporting special education will continue.
We are looking at what other things we can transfer that might not need congressional approval at this point.
Some state education leaders welcome the efforts to cut red tape.
Optimizing the funds for the students, the parents, and the teachers by allowing these processes to get closer to where they are being used.
It all comes as the Justice Department is facing a new deadline today to fully answer questions about the deportation flights of alleged Venezuelan gang members. A federal judge seeking to determine if the White House defied his court order, calling previous answers woefully insufficient.
We think it's egregious that a single district judge is trying to tell the President of the United States who he can and cannot deport from our soil.
Part of a growing fight with the federal courts. Elon Musk is scheduled to visit the Pentagon today for a meeting and briefing, including on China. According to 3 defense officials to NBC News, they could not confirm New York Times reporting that part of the briefing would be on U.S. military plans for any potential war breaking out with China. They're citing 2 U.S. officials. President Trump overnight and early this morning forcefully rejecting that reporting. In Washington, I'm Alice Barr. Back to you.
Well, some sad news for the northern part of Minnesota. Nearly 600 Iron Range workers are losing their jobs. Cleveland Cliffs announced plans to lay off hundreds of steel workers at both the Hibbing Taconite and Mincorca mine. The company says the changes will rebalance working capital needs. A columnist for the Iron Range said it's partially because of cooling demand for steel in sectors like the auto industry. He said uncertainty from tariffs and a slowdown in the stock market is causing automakers to lower their production. Now workers are being forced to make decisions fast.
I think it's every emotion you can think. You know, they have families, they have mortgages, they have, you know, whatever gamut of payments they have. And so, yeah, you're going to get some unemployment, but that's not going to last forever.
Employees at the 2 mines were given a 60-day notice, meaning they'll be paid for 60 days, but layoffs can start right now. Johnson says layoffs at this scale haven't happened since 2009, with the exception of those during COVID. This afternoon, the man convicted of killing North High School student Deshaun Hill is set to be back in court for an evidentiary hearing. Cody Forencamp is being tried again after his conviction was overturned due to statements while illegally detained. Well, as schools are setting their budgets for next school year now, in the state legislature, lawmakers are working to fix a change in funding that was an unintended consequence of giving students across the state free meals. Schools used to use applications for free lunch as a measure for certain types of funding to help students in poverty, but without that money, jobs and programs are on thin ice. Araya Katene has a look at the decisions and discussions underway.
At schools across Minnesota, big questions are looming, and district leaders like Zena Stenvik are at the Capitol in search of answers.
We do have to let our staff know in the next few weeks if they have a job for next school year.
Superintendent Stenvik leads Columbia Heights Public Schools, a district of about 3,400 students, facing a loss next year of roughly $3.7 million.
Imagine cutting 85% of the teachers in one elementary school. That's what it equates to in our district. Not because our community and our families have suddenly become more wealthy, but just because the change in calculation.
It all comes down to how much money the state gives school districts in compensatory revenue. That's the funding districts get specifically for helping students in poverty.
The bottom line is that this funding is for the neediest students in the state of Minnesota.
Historically, this was measured using 2 metrics: how many students rely on government services like SNAP or Medicaid, and how many apply for free or reduced price lunch. But with every student in Minnesota now getting free school meals, the state will no longer consider free or reduced price lunch applications. Instead, it relies solely on how many students are getting government services, leading to an inaccurate representation of how many are actually experiencing poverty.
When we did that, we really threw the formula out of whack. So my bill would reintroduce those free and reduced lunch form counts into the formula.
A bill introduced in February by Democratic Representative Sandra Feist would also create a task force for figuring out a long-term solution. In a hearing this afternoon, some Republicans on the House Education Finance Committee say it's time to take a deep dive into this type of funding.
We need to determine if this funding is effective.
But as budget deadlines loom for school districts,
We have contractual obligations with our teachers.
they say they need answers now.
That was Raya Katani reporting. And Superintendent Stenvik says that the latest her district can wait to make staffing decisions is June 1st, but they've never waited that long before. School districts usually make these decisions March and April. Right now, even though we are in spring, crews at MSP Airport are already planning for next winter. The Metropolitan Airports Commission just announced over the next 3 years, they're going to get 58 new snow removal vehicles at the airport. Officials say the $62 million purchase will help maintain operations for commercial and other aircraft and lower ongoing costs. They always do a great job clearing the runways there. Well, hey, stick with us. More news and weather coming up after the break.